is currently teaching at Instituto Nacional José Miguel Carrera, and he is also a field supervisor in EFL programs at UMCE and Universidad Católica. So, Ruben, welcome. Thank you for being here, and I'll just hand it over to you. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's very exciting to be here. Thank you so much for reading my paper, and all the people and next to their laptops and cameras. You know, it's a very difficult time, this pandemic, and thank you very much for attending this presentation. So as you said, with no further ado, let's start. Today, people, I bring you an investigation. Okay, they're running back in Nottingham. But let me give you some context for this presentation. Since I finished my undergraduate studies, I focused on the use of technologies in the classroom. This experience and all my experience in schools led me to realize the necessity of integrating these technologies in the classroom, since their impact would increase or improve the way we teach. Digital natives, as once coined by Mr. Pransky by the beginning of this millennium, have pushed us, teachers, into this situation in which we have reacted rather than projected a new way of organizing school curriculums. You know that we've learned a lot during this pandemic, right? But have we learned to choose technologies appropriately? As teachers, we are always trying to find the most effective tools for our students to learn, right? We find ourselves in this environment of thousands of applications that we don't know which one to choose, so that we constantly ask ourselves whether we are applying, right, the correct method or the correct tool. And it seems like it is a never-ending and a time-wasting task as we find no way out. In that sense, right, there are a number of different tools, technological tools, with which we develop different type of skills. And in this presentation, I'm going to focus on the speaking skill. The main idea of this investigation, of this research that I ran back in Nottingham, as I said, started when I realized that the little integration of technological tools in the classroom was clearly having an impact in my teaching practices. And I realized that they were absolutely outdated, right? Without technology, I said, this is not going in the way the world is moving towards, right? Right now. Then I also realized that what is the point of having tools if there is little that we can use? Because the context does not provide it, or simply we don't know which one to use in the classroom context. So I had a feeling that it was not only about me, okay? But there were other factors that I said, okay, this is not only me, there are other factors that are involved in this complexity of not integrating technologies and not bringing these tools to the classroom. So that is why I basically wanted to investigate this topic. Yeah. So how is that technology became so important for the classroom? You know, in this pandemic has been one of the hardest things to tackle in terms of time, mental health, and productivity, right? We have technologies and we have the classroom. They're like clashing constantly. What we use, is this really working for what I want my students to do? So to what extent do beliefs, okay, affect the selection of technological tools for the classroom context? I started with that question. I want you to bear this question in mind, right, until the end of this presentation, because it's going to be very important for you to remember, okay, about this specific question. how do you picture your professional careers as teachers after the pandemic? Because, right, we were kind of pushed to use these technological tools, but how are you going to change your practices? Are you really going to use technologies after the pandemic is over? We hope so, that the pandemic is over at some point. So I want you to bear this question in mind as well. And please scan that QR code so that I can see your perspectives about this question. Okay, I think that the link is already in the chat. If you guys please help me out with that.
Yes, I just posted it.
Okay, great. I will be waiting for your answers. Describe how technology is going to be in your lessons after the pandemic is over. So, you know, the technologies are very important for developing different skills, but in this case, we can do many other things, right? I think I can share this one. Yes. So here we have one comment. My classes have been permanently moved to online lessons. That's right. I would never see my students face to face anymore. Okay, that is a quite pessimistic way, but I think that at some point we're going to see them again, and that is actually what I'm trying to provide. I mean, I want to solve that question. What are we going to do after all this thing is over? Definitely different use of ICTs, right? Since we've been forced, yes, to integrate them, and that learning is probably going to stay. Yes, absolutely right. The knowledge about ICTs is really, really important. I believe that technology is going to be my best friend regarding how to deliver information to my students. Yes, totally agree with that. Another person says that I will implement different activities that can be carried out with the use of different online platforms. Perfect. Remember that there are not only online platforms. We can find out also some applications and different tools using a laptop, using mobile phone, tablet. There are different tools so students can interact or answer, right, in different ways. Great. Probably students will get a lot more used to an indirect and less dependent, right, kind of tasks. So we can allow ourselves to adapt our activities and give a more refreshing touch. Yes, absolutely right. Yeah, great. And here we have another one. Yes, here it is. I struggle choosing the best tool. Yeah. And how do we know that what a best tool is? That is difficult, right? But I think that we will be forced to become more creative. Yes, absolutely. So thank you very much for your, yeah, there we have many other comments. We have changed to more project-based assessment, fewer memory tests. Oof, how do we do that with technology? It's very easy to deliver a lot of information, but how do we make our students work collaboratively in different tasks? That's difficult. What kind? Can we use, for example, Duolingo in that case? That is the question. Great. Thank you very much for that. This one. Yeah. There we go. So I'm going to give you the context of this investigation. In order to describe a little bit about the context in which this investigation is placed, we may divide this element, like the context, right, into different branches. First, we have technology, which we can find embedded in, we have the curriculum framework and the Enlaces program, right? So it's how these two things were actually working with technology. In very simple terms, for those who don't know what Enlaces was, it was one of the most important projects that had a chance to provide a technological tool, or a technological turn, for Chilean education. Its aim was to use technology to improve the educational system and its huge gap, right, between private and public schools regarding the access to technologies. That was basically the aim of this project. But it was very difficult for the program to attain that objective, to reduce this gap. The reason was the reason for this was that its weak progression and the geographical difficulties of the country, right? You know, Chile is a long country and it's very difficult to keep a solid network, right? So it's difficult to provide a stable way of connecting with others. Currently in state-funded schools, there is an evident weak connection with everything, like related to the use of technological tools. So it was unable to promote the integration of technologies for language learning, okay? Because Enlaces was for everything, was for all the subjects that we have here in Chile. But precisely in English, it was very difficult. The fact that this program was alive like 5 years ago, it doesn't mean that technologies were not able or available, right, for teachers. They're actually used by teachers, but not according to what they know about those technologies, okay? Specifically regarding the curriculum framework, the speaking skill is not one of the most important or more prominent skills that are developed in public classrooms, okay? We have to bear that in mind because that is quite important. Since this investigation is focused on speaking skill, right? To describe this, let's say, insipid presence of the speaking skill, the oral production, right? It was compiled in an oral component. That is to say, the receptive and productive skill were together, right? Not focused on speaking and focused on listening. They were melted together. Both of them have been merged in only one indicator, which resulted in weakening the focus on the skills as a whole, right? It is precisely that what moves me to have a deeper look into it, right? But we also have the theory about the speaking skill, which is also important. I'm going to have a look at that later. Okay, so just wait for it. These two aspects, like the oral component and the theory, are quite related to what teachers select for their lessons, what teachers are going to teach in each lesson. Sometimes we focus on writing skills, we focus on reading skills. What about these two? And much of that selection has to do with beliefs, okay? What I believe is the best for my students, okay? So these two aspects, the knowledge and experiences, can clearly impact on the selection of technologies, because they may alter their decisions, the teacher's decisions, based on the experience, right, with the technological tools and the knowledge about those technologies, whether they know how they work, how they can apply those technologies. So that can influence our thinking. Thus, our experiences and knowledge and even our beliefs may change the choosing of a specific technology to teach this speaking skill. Let's start by analyzing this aspect, okay, about beliefs, so that you can have a clear look of what I'm talking about. So teacher beliefs or teacher cognitions, it's actually teacher beliefs, sorry. Teacher cognitions are divided into different branches. One of them is teacher cognitions, and they interact with a number of elements from the context and experiences, okay? Beliefs are part of these cognitions, as I said. It has been such hard work to classify teacher beliefs because there isn't a specific way to investigate all of them. Like, we have different types of beliefs. There are some teacher beliefs which are more prominent than others, right? Depending on many different factors. But one definition kind of paved the way to investigate them, and it was made by Pajares. Listen, in 1992. So it's a very old description. We have other descriptions, more current descriptions, but the one that is made by Pajares is really, really accurate. So as it says, the teacher believes is a complex and dynamic construct that has an emotional charge. That is basically his definition, okay? Now, research suggests that teacher believes is a messy construct as a concept, since it's complex and dynamic. The chief problem regarding the personal, emotional, and judgmental and context-related reasoning nature of beliefs is that the research proposes that this analysis of beliefs from a social-cultural aspect, because if you analyze, like, for every individual, you will get thousands of information that you cannot classify. It will be simply impossible. So the idea was to analyze them from a socio-cultural standpoint. Okay. Yeah. As teacher beliefs depend on how we establish social relationships with different components of the context, they may alter our perception about the implementation of technologies. Okay. Barcelos and Calaja, one of the current investigators about teacher beliefs, propose that some beliefs may get stuck, okay, in time, but others that are constantly changing, okay, and they redefine themselves with factors that surrounds them. So we are going to grab from that assertion to move on in this presentation. So you can see here we have teacher beliefs related to teacher practices, but look at the environment. We have so many things that alter our beliefs that it's kind of overwhelming. Okay, when we decide on doing something, much of that is influenced, right, by our beliefs. We have to highlight the significant role of context that seems to cover all these decisions, right? The context, as you can see there, we have internal and external factors. Apart from knowing that the direct connection with teacher practices, we need to know how they behave, right? So that is core in this investigation, the way teacher beliefs behave. So, as I said, from a sociocultural approach to analyze this complex construct, we have this diagram. Yeah. The process shown here describes how our life experiences, right, are filtered and then processed by our beliefs, okay? Changing our teaching practices that is integrated to our experience, right? While we filter our experiences, the ones that are right here, we filter them. We also frame our decisions according to the context, okay? And here is when context plays a really important role. And this is called framing, okay? And finally, the last step in which we use our beliefs is that our experiences are guided into action, okay, according to what we consider right or efficient. This is quite linked to personal and emotional perceptions when successful actions take place. Okay, so here we see that it is supposed that our beliefs are changed in a certain way, but they have to go through all these steps so that our practices change, and then we'll have a new experience, and that experience starts to move on. Okay, and this cycle is always the same. Remember, this is a social cultural approach. This is a social cultural standpoint. So how influential is this rationale to select technological tools to make our students speak? Scan that QR code and let's see what you think about that. As can be seen, we use this shaping machinery to carry out our pedagogical actions in our schools. That is why it is important for us to understand how we actually work with our beliefs, how we feel them, and how we apply them every time we choose a specific tool to do a specific thing with our students. It becomes a sort of template. I'm going to check out your answers. Oh, no. So there we are. I'm going to share this one. So you're basically saying that the filter is one of the most prominent and probably the most influential. Interesting. But all of them are very important, right? I don't know if you have any questions until for now, like until this moment, because this is the first part.
Nothing on the chat, at least.
Okay, great.
Nothing in Facebook as well, so
we're fine.
Good to go.
We're fine. Great. Great. So just as showing these results, you're saying that filter is quite an important thing to consider, right? Basically, we don't consider the filters; we just use them, right? Beliefs, we use our beliefs. If you think that something is right, you go in that way, and if you think that something is wrong, you just don't do it, right? But filtering is an important, and as you say, probably the most prominent way we use our beliefs. Great. This one here. So having introduced this, the significance of beliefs and how you may think they could impact on your teaching practices, let's have a look at the technologies in classroom. This is going to be like a lot of information, so get ready for that. Here we go. CAL. I don't know if you've heard about this, but it's an acronym that means computer-assisted language learning. I always confuse it with another one. Computer-assisted language learning, okay? And there are many definitions, and I think I've chosen this one, which is quite a good definition for it. And it's basically how technology is addressed, okay? How we should use our technologies. And Weishauer and Kern say that it is a vehicle for human interaction, okay? So our teaching practice, dramatically changed from face-to-face to a remote mode, right? That shift changed the tools that we had to use for language teaching, okay? And these tools were already beeping, right? In the background, as you can see, that is 2000, right? I mean, yes, 2000 in that year. And then beeping in the background, it meant that it was a potential use, okay, for the future. So exploring different areas in which technologies can get into a classroom context, I found this one, which is called CAL. And this approach highlights the use of these technologies, but it went through different stages, okay? There were actually 3 stages. The stages are aligned to to how the paradigms were changing, okay? This starts in the 40s. When language learning started to be a good thing to learn, right? So they were guided, the creation of technology was guided by the behaviorist, the cognitive, and the socio-cognitive approaches. While the behaviorist period promoted drilling and repetition, the cognitive attracted the idea of interaction, okay, using computers. But the problem was that these computers talk to people, but people were not able to interact with those computers, okay? So the idea of trying to make people interact was a stepping stone to move towards the interactive paradigm, okay? Which learners, I mean, the socio-cognitive, talk among each other, and then technology served as a tool for communication, where learners discover and create with them, okay? Oh, there is another QR code, but hold on. So from this behaviorist to the socio-cognitive, the acronym changed. It became TEL, technologically enhanced language learning, from computer-assisted language learning to technology enhanced language learning. And the idea was basically to see technologies as an interactive tool, okay? This brings out again the behaviorist and contrastivist approach, the eternal dichotomy. What do we do with technologies? Do we want our students to interact, or do we want our students to get information from these tools, the technological tools? So as we have already this approach, like the CAL or TEL, the use of technologies for interaction, it comes the time in which we have to judge what the correct tool is, the one we're going to use for making our students speak, remember. And that process of assessing tools in how we judge technologies, right? But much of this is based on what we believe is the best. Again, we believe, teacher believes. The problem is that the context is always limiting our decisions, which could be theoretical, comparative. Where it is? There it is. Yes, comparative, authentic, and vocabulary related. And that is basically how we consider, like, do we consider technologies as a theoretical thing? Does theory tells us what is right, what is wrong? Or does the pedagogical approach is the one that we want to use in order to apply a certain tool? Okay, we have different ways, vocabulary related. Do we want to make our students learn a lot of vocabulary? Or comparative, for example, which we compare this classroom is without technologies, and this is with technologies. What is the difference? You compare and you make your own conclusions, right? What happens is that when we make a decision on what to use, we even use our experiences against of what we empirically, that means what we can clearly see, right? Or we wait too much on what we believe, right? While the judgmental, okay, the judgmental argument, that means what I think is best. We have the empirical judgment and the judgmental way of analyzing technologies. The judgmental is on the teacher's assumption of technology. The empirical, right, is how we perform our lessons with technologies, and we can see the results. However, as time is so limited in our profession, we select what our experiences consider right. Okay, like I don't have time to argue, okay, what I've seen or what I believe. I just do what I think is right. So again, our beliefs, we are using our beliefs just to do things. The relationship between beliefs and context, and here is where I need to, yeah. Deciding on what tool to use, definitely requires a subjective notion of reality. And to ground this idea, we need to analyze, right, our context. Okay, we have first order barriers and second order barriers. They pose us different challenges. Okay, and in other words, they pose us problems. Yeah, there it is. The first order barriers and second order barriers limit, right, the framework, the working framework to the use of technologies. Okay, as we can see here, the first order barriers are an external limitation. For example, having the software abilities, how you can use a software, the teacher training, whether you receive the education, right, to teach a certain tool, and the curriculum framework. If the curriculum framework is not telling you to use technologies, what would you do? Will you use it? Of course, probably we'll use it because we want to move on, but to what extent is the curriculum supporting you to use these technologies? So the curriculum is clearly posing us a limitation. And the second order barriers are more related to the teacher personal perception, okay? These tend to be altered depending on the teacher's professional stage, for example, or the lesson stage. When you are actually planning, you can see that a barrier, for example, I will not use this tool because I don't believe in that students will learn if they interact. You are planning that, so you'll have the results. Students will not interact. Okay. So we have here again, the eternal dichotomy, the transmissionist approach, and the constructivist approach. Whether you want your students to collaborate and learn together, or you are the one who provides the information for them to use. So are your first and second order barriers visible at work? How can you detect that? Here goes another QR code for you to have a look at and participate, of course. The link is also available in the chat. I think it's the number 4, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, great. Okay, I'm sharing now. Here I'm sharing the barriers. So I can see that, oh, okay, both, but more on the second order one. So it's more personal. Great. So we can fix it. Just imagine a school without any computer. The context is clearly telling you don't use technologies. Or people without access to the internet. It's good. Let's say that it's good that there are more second order barriers, because those are things that we can fix. Great. I don't know if someone is left out there that has not voted. Great. So I'm going to come back, and we have the majority thinks that both, but more on the second order ones, both, but more on the first order ones, right? It's interesting because we face different problems and we have to tackle all of them at the same time, right? And that is what makes it, what makes our profession difficult. So I'm gonna, this one. There we go. Thank you so much for your participation. Thank you. So about speaking skills, we've just left the technological analysis. Now let's go to the last component of this investigation, which is speaking skills. You know that teaching the speaking skill or the neglected skill in the Chilean curriculum, regardless the amount of technologies that allows us to do it, it has several features that make it difficult to teach, right? This is because we have to consider to teach fluency, pronunciation, and interaction. And they're all in the same skill, while we learn how to speak, right? Here's another feature. We also expand our learning in the general sense. We expand our vocabulary, grammar, the power of synthesis, and in other words, communication. And to explain how it works in the classroom, Go and Burns propose us this cycle, okay, which presents different stages we choose to go through when teaching speaking. As you can see, the first section shows a more receptive actions, whereas from the fifth stage, the one that it says repeat speaking tasks, it is a more productive section. Clearly, all teachers have different tendencies. That is why we had a look at beliefs before, okay? So if all teachers think and focus on different aspects, okay? So it is important to bear in mind because it will determine our approach, our methodological approach, whether it is going to be constructivist or transmissionist, okay? Look, the number 2 says provide input or guide planning, right? Conduct speaking tasks. So all of them are receptive things, whereas the number 7, facilitate feedback on learning. You need to make your students speak, okay? So these stages are very important for this investigation. So receptive or productive activities, what do you think is best? Or what do you think you are more comfortable with? Constructivist or transmissionist? That is key for us to bear in mind when we plan, when we consider technologies in the classroom. So there are 2 contrastive currents to teach the speaking ability: the psycholinguistic, which is the personal development of language learning, and the sociocultural interaction, the sociocultural one, which is interaction and collaboration, okay? Basically, technologies have moved in that way, either psycholinguistically or socioculturally, because they have considered that not all learners want to be exposed, right, for collaboration, for working collaboration or for interaction. Okay, so we virtually had these technologies helping TEL to be more concrete, okay? But again, the context is always there, present, and driving our beliefs, right? Whether to think about teaching my students through transmission of knowledge or provide opportunities to interact. There is an idea proposed by Kumara Vadivelu, and that says that we need to create our own method, okay? And that method should have at least 3 particular things. And these are particularity, that means related to your context; practicality, it means that you can use it in your context; and the possibility, okay, whether you can deploy all the tools in the classroom. So with this, teachers are able to build their own context and their own method. For example, there are many different different ways to see this. For example, you have mobile assisted language learning, in which you use mobile phones or tablets. You have virtual worlds, for example, so that you can provide different opportunities for your students to interact. So technologies with a purpose for teaching speaking. And what do we look for when we integrate technologies in the classroom to teach the speaking skill? And here is, this one is key, because when I talk about interaction and collaboration, I talk about this, how can I say this? These concepts, okay, which is the input in which you receive the information, you get the transmission from the laptop, from the tablet, the mobile phone. But what you also need to make your students develop their speaking skill is the negative evidence, which is the negative feedback, to get the information right or wrong from the other speaker, for the person in front of you or on the screen. And that is interaction and collaboration. And finally, what you also need, the tool to do this, technological tool should do this, is the outcome. Okay, whether what you say is actually right or wrong. Okay, so the technologies started to move in that way, in that direction. And they started to recreate the virtual space for interaction, improving the quality of feedback. Remember Duolingo 8 years ago? And look at it now. I mean, I can still remember that I won some medals, but now there are badges, there are people you can interact with, but there are bots. And it's very nice because it evaluates the way you pronounce, the words you say, and it has clearly improved in that direction. ELSA is another application that can recreate, right, this environment of interaction. There are other ones, for example, audio conferencing, automatic speech recognition, and virtual reality, and thousands of others. So about the research, I'm going to go very quick through this. The research basically was a mixed method approach, and I used different instruments, one for the quantitative collection of data and the qualitative collection of data. It was first a questionnaire, and then it was an interview. Okay, the first one was a questionnaire because I wanted to know the power of beliefs, right? To what extent my subjects believed in what they say, okay? And then as a result of those of that data, I also brought some questions according to what they say in the questionnaire, and then I asked them further questions. It was a follow-up interview, semi-structured, okay? If you want to investigate about this, that is why I am presenting this slide. So what about the results? I organized the results in 3 different aspects, and those were the technology versus reality, the task achievement, and experience. Okay, let's go over the first one, which is technology versus reality. And you know that the classroom context is an important issue when it comes to integrate technologies for oral interaction. The availability of resources is a significant problem, okay? For us as teachers, okay? The external and internal factors impact on the choosing, of course, and these factors, especially interaction, pushed teachers to learn how to use technologies. It is rather than, I believe, okay, I want to improve my teaching practices. It was another thing, which was our students. I mean, the subject students, that the ones who pushed my subjects to start using technologies, because that is what the world requires right now. Having in mind that beliefs are dynamic and sometimes contradictory, teachers use all sets of beliefs. I mean, filtering, framing, as you said, they were pretty much alike the answers you gave me in the Mentimeter. They filter, they frame, and they guide, okay? And the selection of technology is both judgmental and empirical. As you can see here, teachers tended to consider context in which they are and they aren't technologies. That is to say, they used previous experiences in which they were not technologies. That is the comparative one. But look at the corpus linguistics, which is the lexical, the vocabulary that as a name, right? They said, okay, my students require a lot of vocabulary and I'm going to give them, but through technologies. So they consider that an important aspect. About the task achievement, on the one hand, the degree of success of tasks depends on how the context or environment provide the tools to achieve a learning goal. Okay, if the context does not provide these tools, incorporating technologies will not serve the purpose of achieving any speaking task. Regarding the teachers' experiences, knowledge about technologies and their beliefs are not that prominent when thinking about the task achievement. The same happens with their ideals of teaching. It's not that prominent, as you can see in that graph, because that is not what they think it is important, the ideal of teaching. However, teachers acknowledge, right, the self and co-questioning about the implementation of technologies. So this is a combination of empirical and judgmental arguments, right, that sustain the decision of incorporating technologies in the classroom context. On this matter, we can say that teachers use a number of their experiences, knowledge, and beliefs when they make a decision as a group or draw a consensus. About experience, teacher believes that there are some certain uses of technology to motivate students. That is what the experience says. Okay, teachers' knowledge about the use of technologies is critical when it comes to choose a technology. Lack of training and close contact with technologies could dispel the willing of integrating technologies in the classroom, which is clearly detrimental. Teachers find their own personal ways to self-motivate in their introduction in the classroom context. Regarding the skill to be taught, I mean the speaking skill, beliefs about constructivism and transmissionist approach are equally important. Okay, thus it is significant for us teachers to know about the learning stage of our students so as to apply the correct tool. It doesn't make sense if you don't know where your students are, you cannot decide whether you're going to be more constructivist or more transmissionist. Okay, remember that being transmissionist is not bad, but it depends on where your students are in this learning progress, right? So here I think it's the last question. To what extent do you think that training is necessary for our professional lives and why? Okay, I want you to tell me whether you think that training as an experience, because you know teachers' experience says, I'm going to use this because this motivates my students. But is that why we use technologies? Is that the reason why we want to use these technologies? When Cal and tell us you need to make your students interact, but you use the technologies to motivate, there is something that is not working, or probably there are other aspects to investigate. Okay, I'm gonna see your answers. To what extent do you think that training is necessary for our professional lives and why? I believe that training is necessary so we can overcome internal barriers. Second order barriers, right, perfect. Preventing us from trying some technologies, totally agree. Overcoming the learning curve, yes. Getting to know the tools, yeah, totally agree. The fact that we don't use certain tools is because we don't know how to use them. So that should not be a barrier, right? We need to be trained to use technologies in the appropriate way. Of course, you can motivate your students, that's fine, it's great. But if you want to make your students speak, you need to find the correct tools to make actually your students speak, interact, collaborate, create things, right? I would say that training is really important for our professional development. This is because it is not only through our experience and beliefs that we construct our classes, right? We do too through the tools that we have available and we can use. Oh yeah, have available, what a word. Because you cannot experience new things, right, if you don't have the tools. It's simply impossible. I think that training is crucial since we can gain experience and start to understand which tools are actually useful for our students. But you're right, totally right. Now, training is paramount to boost our experiences and even to confront our beliefs. Yeah. What is going to change your beliefs if you don't even try to learn new things? Your beliefs are going to get stuck, as I said at the beginning. It's simply impossible. Training, correction and innovation is crucial to understand the benefits and withdrawals of technology. Yes. Yeah. Great. Thank you so much for your participation. It's great that you participate in this. Practice makes perfect. Oh yeah. Yeah, totally agree. Okay, so I'm gonna move on. Okay. So conclusion and findings of this investigation. In order to conclude basically the presentation, I would like to highlight key elements that I could draw from the research. First and second order barriers are the cause of a huge delay in the incorporation of technologies here in Chile. The context frames teacher beliefs and the evaluation procedures. Teacher beliefs and the evaluation and technology are tightly connected since both influence our decision and choosing technological tools or some software. Knowledge about the tools would provide confidence to teachers. Collaborative work is essential to share experiences so that we decide on applying technologies in the classroom to teach speaking skills, of course. Teachers use technologies to increase students' interest and motivation so that they end up speaking. That's something that I would expect. If I want my students motivated, they will clearly do something. They will react to that. So it is used for other purposes rather than just in collaboration and make the students speak. Teacher believes work by filtering contextual characteristics, frame my subject's teaching style, and project their selection according to the efficiency indicators of the technology involved in the tasks they create. Now, the weak prominence in the curriculum framework of the speaking skill, as consequence, we have weak results, okay, to foster the speaking ability. Just imagine a framework which has little technological influence. Our curriculum framework. It has little demonstrations about the use of technologies. Of course, it promotes it. Okay, there are specific sections in which we have to use technologies. Okay, but how? How do we use them? Okay. So in other words, we are still in early stages. Now bringing back the question at the beginning, how do you picture your professional careers as teachers after the pandemic? Knowing that we have beliefs, knowing that now we kind of know how technology works, and knowing about our curriculum framework. Okay, so it is something that we really need to think about before acting. I don't know if there are people who may have questions, because I'm just about to finish the presentation. And of course, I want to give my final thoughts.
If there are any questions, you can post them on the chat. And for people following us on Facebook, Fabienne has been following that. I don't know if there are any questions there.
No questions so far.
Okay.
Great. So, yeah, I just want to give my thanks, right, to my family, who were always backing me up, and TESOL for getting this presentation online. Anit, that sponsored me during this huge journey. Beca Chile, CONICYT. My teachers at the University of Nottingham, and my employers who also trust in me, right? And as I said, as a final thought, I strongly believe that our beliefs should not get stuck, okay? But this is not to blame on us. The fact that we have certain beliefs, that's not that we are wrong or right, because there are contextual factors which prevent us to move on, okay, to change our beliefs. If we had training, access, and a sturdy integrated curriculum with technologies and speaking and writing or whatever, we can move on to the incorporation of technologies in the classroom context as proposed by the theory. For now, we can use our experience as a walking stick to resist the changes that are coming for next year, or what is going to happen when we just leave this way of working. Probably we're not going to leave this, not at all. That would be a lot. We would be in the losing team if we let go all the things that we've learned during this pandemic. We have to learn from this situation and use it to change, right, our teaching practices. Thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate your participation and your attendance. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ruben. We have people on the chat sharing their thoughts. Amazing and interesting research. Congrats.
Thank you.
Awesome webinar. Thank you, Ruben. Yes, Gonzalo.
Yes, Gonzalo.
You can post your question or you can unmute yourself. What would you say is the importance that teachers have in the creation of technologies for the classroom? Should they be closely related to that development? Or developers should be capable of taking teachers' experiences and be capable of incorporating them into their development process?
Oh, wow.
That's
It's a
tough
good
one.
question. Yes, it's a good question. But I think I get it. Probably developers developers just think as what they can sell, right? They probably hire some teachers, and teachers would say, okay, we need this, and they develop those things. But not all countries, right, have the same necessities. So you might find very well developed applications. You might find very nice software that you can use in your classrooms, but you will not find the correct one for your context. So you need to adapt it. If you're talking about creating new things, that would take, I think, a lot of time. So I would suggest you to, when I meant by incorporating, is taking these technologies and adapt it to your own context, even to every student you have. Technologies open a lot of things, like universal design for learning practices. You can help a lot of students, I don't know, providing opportunities, right, for them to learn the basic thing and learn more. Okay, so I think that you need to adapt it. Okay, adapt the technology that comes. For example, Meet. What was Meet or Zoom created for? Just for short meetings. But who would have thought that we were going to use it for teaching? It was unbelievable, like 10 years ago. There is another one that says, I have a short question. If beliefs are framed for the context, okay, inventories have to be revised. Contextless, yes, totally. Totally, yes. You need to know what you have in your context, and from there, consider to use technologies. For example, currently where I'm teaching at, it's very difficult to use technologies, but we have technologies, some of them. But do I use them effectively? There are many other things that I could have or I could do, but context, again, is pushing you inside, not letting you, giving opportunities, like giving the chance for my students to do more. Okay, it will never be enough, of course, but technologies are moving on. Technologies are moving on.
Thank you. Danilza, you can definitely have the recording on Facebook. This webinar was being streamed live on Facebook, and if you just follow us there, you can see the recording, and it will be uploaded to our YouTube channel also. Well, we are a bit past the time, so we just wanted to thank you, Ruben, for your very interesting talk. Thank you for joining us, everyone.
Thank you very much.
And we just invite everyone to follow us on social media. We're on Facebook, on Twitter, LinkedIn, and Instagram, and our website, TESOL.cl. You can email us there too if you have any questions, contact@TESOL.cl. And all our previous webinars and the recording for this one will be on our YouTube channel, which is, I'm going to copy and paste the link here so you can go to it later. And that's it. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone, for coming. And thank you, Ruben. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Yes, it was very interesting.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate you come.